After saving her boss from embarrassment, an incredible memory revealed a hidden transformation. Sarah sat at her desk, a fortress of organization stacked around her, papers piled meticulously as if they were her life's essence. The atmosphere in the office crackled with nervous energy as the clock ticked down to the pitch meeting. She glanced over her shoulder at Mark, her boss, who was rifling through his notes as if they contained the secret to life itself. He was pitching to a major client, doing what he did best, capturing attention. And here she was, the invisible hand that made it all run smoothly. It gnawed at her insides, a vague discomfort that she couldn't shake off. Unpaid efforts to keep everything on track weighed heavily on her, while the recognition passed her by like smoke in the air. Just moments before the meeting commenced, Mark's hands twitched nervously, spilling his notes onto the floor. A wave of panic flashed across his face, a rare glimpse of vulnerability. Sarah's instinct kicked in. With a steady voice, she filled the silence with insightful remarks that tied the room back to the agenda. The weight she carried in her chest eased as she noticed Mark's relieved expression, but an irony cut through the relief. Hadn't she already played the supporting role enough? After the meeting, Sarah felt a familiar tightness returning, curling around her psyche with relentless pressure. Her focus slipped into memories of her grandmother, the once celebrated artist whose stories often faded into silence among family gatherings. The attic seemed to call to her, hints of forgotten inspirations swirling in the air. Hesitation tugged at her thoughts, but she climbed the creaky stairs. And there they were, her grandmother's artwork laying untouched, radiating life. Each piece whispered of lost dreams, lines drawn with raw emotion. Sarah's heart raced, not just at the beauty surrounding her, but at the realization of her own long-suppressed yearning. In a small enclosed room where shadows played bravely with her insecurities, she began to wonder if painting was a path worth exploring. Her friends advised against it, claiming it was risky, unrealistic. Yet, as she hesitated between daydreaming of vibrant colors and her dull existence in the corporate world, a wildfire ignited within her. As the days passed, her secret sessions filled with paints and brushes turned into a sanctuary. But then, an air of discomfort crept into the office. Whispers floated through hollow spaces, doubt and envy replacing corporate unity. How could someone like her, someone so accustomed to the background, aspire to something so grand? The judgment felt like knives at her spirit. What now? She was on the edge of a precipice, staring down at a void, haunted by the double life she was leading. Just when she began to embrace her artistic identity, Mark announced a major company showcase where presentations would showcase hidden talents. Fear and excitement danced within her and clashed dangerously in her heart. Could she step up? Gathering courage, she mustered the nerve to approach Mark for more responsibility. But the skepticism in his gaze cut through her. The weight of his dismissive attitude echoed heavier than a stone, chiseling at her sense of self. As she walked away, her mind spiraled, the disparity between who she was and who she wanted to be tearing her apart. How could she honor her grandmother's legacy, yet remain unseen in the eyes of those who deemed her unworthy? In this tangled web, she stood paralyzed between ambition and obligation, feeling every heartbeat echo with urgency and fear. Uncertainty loomed, making her confront the tallest hurdle of all, her own acceptance. What awaited her at this intersection could forge or fracture her very soul. The path ahead shimmered indistinctly, urging her to choose. The days that followed were a haze of conflict for Sarah. Each morning, the office felt more like a cage, the sterile air suffocating the budding artist within her. As deadlines loomed, her dual existence felt increasingly untenable, one role defined by obedience, the other sparking fire in her core. The weight of unfulfilled dreams pressed down on her with a relentless insistence, igniting every insecurity into a raging question: who was she really meant to be? After yet another meeting filled with Mark's rapid-fire directives and hollow praise, Sarah found herself retreating to the attic more frequently. Those stolen moments surrounded by paint and canvases taught her valuable lessons. Each stroke evoked her grandmother's spirit, but the whispers of doubt remained, echoing louder with each brush of color. Perhaps the world wasn't ready for Sarah the artist. Perhaps it wasn't time to disrupt the carefully curated perception others had of her. But with every piece she completed, a sense of clarity emerged. Her artwork became her voice, visceral and unafraid. It expressed emotions too often buried under layers of practicality. One evening, after completing a vibrant, chaotic canvas that she felt celebrated her journey, a thought flashed through her mind. What if she showcased her work at the company's talent display? The notion lit up her insides like fireworks, but almost immediately it was extinguished by fear. How could she risk judgment in a space designed to highlight her professional prowess? Yet the thought hung in her mind like a coin spinning on a table, each wobble representing a heartbeat of possibility. It was time for confrontation, not just against external doubters, but against the internal ones as well. Sarah paced the floor, caught in a mental standoff. Maybe she could align her two worlds. What if she held her ground, merged her responsibilities with her ambitions? Could she redefine her professional identity by embracing her art? Doubt festered, but that tiny flame of determination flickered through. After a sleepless night spent oscillating between fears, Sarah made an impulsive decision. She signed up for the talent showcase, her fingers trembling as she confirmed the submission with a click. Instantly, a mixture of exhilaration and terror coursed through her. There was no room for hesitation now. She had made a commitment to unveil herself. Days dripped by slowly, almost torturously. As the showcase loomed closer, the reality of her choice settled like a stone in her belly. Underneath the anxiety slithered a thread of exhilarating anticipation. The risk of judgment was outweighed by the possibility of liberation. What if this was the moment she emerged as more than an unseen assistant? What if her voice, the one amplified through paint, could shift perceptions in this office? In the days leading up to the showcase, Sarah spent every spare moment intertwined with her canvases, pouring her fears and triumphs into her art. Still, each stroke of paint reminded her of the stakes involved. Colleagues she encountered in the break room offered the usual polite smiles, unaware of the tempest inside her. What would they think when they beheld the work born from vulnerability? It became an obsession that fueled her creativity, yet gnawed at her resolve. The day of the showcase finally arrived, and Sarah stood in front of her completed piece, a kaleidoscope of emotions laid bare on the canvas. Her heart thundered as she mounted it for display among her colleagues' more traditional talents. Would they see her work, or merely the safety net of her role in the office? Deep breath. She was here, finally at this juncture, a moment ripe for revelation or failure. Everyone in the room seemed oblivious to her inner turmoil, lost in conversations about the latest quarterly numbers or project updates. But she was alive with anticipation, nerves pulsating like a drumbeat. The time had come to face everyone, not just her colleagues, but her fears as well. Would they embrace the risk she was taking, or would her heart sting beneath their judgment? Standing in front of the canvas, Sarah murmured a silent prayer to her grandmother, hoping for the courage to embrace the truth of who she had become. Would this be the moment of transformation she had been yearning for, or would she retreat once more into the shadows of obscurity? The crowd would soon approach her display, and in that charged silence, Sarah prepared for whatever response awaited. As the first brave colleague drifted towards Sarah's display, the fervor she felt morphed into a dizzying mix of anticipation and trepidation. The artwork loomed larger than life, a testament to her soul laid bare for scrutiny. What if they saw only the chaos, the frantic strokes that mirrored her internal unrest? Time felt suspended while her heartbeat reverberated in her ears, drowning out the buzz of the room. "Wow, this is incredible," came the tentative voice of Rebecca, one of the more outspoken designers in the office. She leaned in closer, her eyes darting over the colors spiraling into unexpected patterns. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Did Rebecca truly see the intention behind the chaos, or was this just a way to placate her? Encouraged by the compliment, Sarah felt a flicker of confidence, yet doubts slithered back into her mind, questioning if any positivity would stall at mere compliments. She remembered a piece of advice from her grandmother: "Art is not about pleasing everyone, it's about expressing the truth of your heart." How could she forget the very essence of what drove her to paint? More colleagues began to notice her display, chattering amongst themselves, glancing her way. The initial wave of fear ebbed, unveiling a surprising sense of empowerment. She stood straighter, even found a smile creeping onto her face as they discussed the colors, the technique, and the emotions they perceived. Sarah felt her doubts recede. She wasn't simply an assistant anymore. She was an artist. But the most significant moment arrived when Mark, her supervisor, approached. As he scrutinized her canvas, Sarah's stomach churned. This was the man whose approval she had so desperately sought for years. Would he dismiss her work, seeing only an employee's folly? "Sarah, this is unexpected," he admitted, and for a terrifying moment she feared the worst. But then he continued, "Your use of color here is really striking. It feels alive." His eyes softened, and Sarah exhaled slowly, the release of tension transforming into exhilaration. As a group of employees gathered to offer their comments, it clicked within her. She was not only claiming space as an artist, but perhaps reshaping the perceptions of those around her. This was more than showing her art. It felt like revealing her identity to the world and stepping boldly into her truth. However, the euphoria was short-lived. From the corner of the room, Sarah caught sight of Amy, another manager, whispering harshly with a couple of others. Their laughter cut through the praise like a knife. A surge of self-consciousness gripped her. Were they mocking her? Was this just a novelty to them, the spectacle of the quiet girl revealing her secret? Suddenly, their laughter rang louder, causing Sarah's heart to race. She felt torn. Was the risk of exposing her true self worth these whispers of possible derision? But like an artist leaning into the brush, she chose to redirect that fear into a pure, unyielding resolve. "I cannot let their perception dictate who I am," she reminded herself silently. She could no longer be tethered by fear, nor the judgment of others. This moment was her stepping stone. In that confronting moment, her gaze shifted back to her canvas. It was an embodiment of her, the struggles she faced, and the beauty that came from embracing vulnerability. She felt a stirring, deeper than artistry. It was a call to persist, to evolve. As the showcase wound down and conversations dwindled, Sarah looked around the room. Her heart settled on a newfound understanding. Perhaps she had a way to integrate both identities, the professional and the artist. Perhaps she could inspire others to embrace their truths too. But she still had to confront one more hurdle, the judgment she felt lingering beneath the surface. The very individuals who might misunderstand her journey were also the ones who could benefit from it. That realization ignited something within her. What if she organized an art workshop at the company? A chance for all to explore their creativity, to share their hidden passions without fear? Could she take another leap? The tension rose within her as she pondered this new venture. Standing before her artwork, surrounded by colleagues who had unwittingly become a part of her transformative journey, she realized that reclaiming her narrative was just the beginning. Would she have the courage to share this idea, risking further scrutiny? Or would she retreat yet again, content with just her paintbrush in hand? With her pulse racing and the air thick with anticipation, Sarah took a deep breath, her thoughts igniting with possibility. In that moment, she understood that the true challenge lay ahead, and it was one she would have to face head-on. The first few days after the showcase settled into a rhythm of normalcy, a veil of comfort that surprisingly didn't stifle her newfound resolve. Each morning, Sarah walked into the office, carrying a growing awareness of the power her art represented, not just for herself, but for those who witnessed her transformation. The initial interactions at the event sparked intrigue that now permeated the workspace. Colleagues exchanged glances and engaged her in casual conversations, pushing her deeper into introspection about her identity. "Are you planning to showcase more of your work, Sarah?" a colleague asked one afternoon, his voice lighthearted yet probing. The question echoed in her mind, leaving her to grapple with what more she could give. She envisioned her artwork not merely as isolated expressions, but as gateways for others to connect and immerse themselves in their creativity. As the prospect of organizing an art workshop solidified in her thoughts, Sarah felt an unfamiliar blend of excitement and anxiety merge like pigments on a palette. The idea was slippery, half-formed. Was she ready to lead others in exploring their artistic sides? Self-doubt crept in, whispering that perhaps it was too bold a step. Then came a serendipitous moment that nudged her resolve toward action. During a routine meeting, an unexpected mishap revealed fragile dynamics within the office. Mark struggled to present new data, a chart that had incorrectly displayed trends, resulting in a collective hush and then nervous laughter around the conference table. Sarah's chest tightened as she watched her mentor falter, the dates on the screen igniting confusion and a hint of embarrassment in his features. Instinct took over. Rather than remaining planted in her seat, Sarah rose, heart pounding. "Actually, I think I could help clarify this," she interjected, stepping forward with a newly emboldened spirit. She quickly summarized the data points and restructured the information in a way that made sense, her words cascading out like strokes on her canvas. Relief washed over Mark's face, and Sarah noticed the mood shift. The laughter faded, replaced by understanding that she was contributing to the team's momentum. In that moment, she experienced an exhilarating unveiling, the realization that her ability to convey ideas in art informed her skills as a communicator in the work environment. This revelation propelled her self-belief further into the light. If she could assist her boss and transform a tense situation into something constructive, surely leading an art workshop could be within her grasp. But what Mark didn't know was that Sarah's sense of accomplishment was not solely drawn from helping him. In aiding him, she discovered her voice, the authority she wielded, not just as an artist, but as a colleague capable of impacting her team's confidence. When the meeting adjourned and colleagues congratulated her for stepping in, the scattered insecurities that earlier shadowed her thoughts began to coalesce into strategies. Could she frame the art workshop as an opportunity to foster collaboration and dismantle the quiet burdens her colleagues carried? As days turned into a new cycle of anticipation, Sarah felt a gravitational pull toward the idea, a chance for others to share, connect, and evolve just as she had. The impulse simmered within her, but it summoned questions. How would she present this initiative? Would she find the right blend of professionalism and creativity to communicate her vision? With a sense of urgency mounting, Sarah began drafting a proposal. Yet another internal conflict rippled through her. Was she merely seeking approval, or was she genuinely trying to create something valuable for herself and others? This exploration revealed deep undercurrents of fear. The shadows of judgment nagged at her corners, and the stories of Amy's laughter resurfaced, whispering that exposure might yield ridicule. But then there was also the desire to connect, to prove that sharing art was not just about skill, but about vulnerability and emotion. The journey towards organizing the workshop felt akin to painting with unsteady hands, an act of daring that could either reveal a beautiful creation or expose her flaws. As she put pen to paper, the contours of her plan began to take shape, yet an echoing uncertainty remained. Amid the hum of office chatter, with colleagues buzzing around her, she steeled herself for the next step. She would need to confront her fear of judgment head-on. Resolving to present her idea to Mark, Sarah felt a surge of mixed emotions. The moment of truth loomed, and with it, the thrill of possibility intertwined with the weight of potential rejection. Would her workshop inspire others as it had for her? As she smoothed her proposal, the pulse of determination blazed brighter within her. This time, the stakes felt higher, and the challenge was set. All it took was a leap from the precipice of doubt into the expansive realm of possibility. With a deep breath, she prepared to approach Mark, her heart thrumming, ready to shape not only her journey, but perhaps ignite a spark in others. But what awaited her on that path? Sarah took a deep breath as she approached Mark's office, the proposal clasped tightly in her hand, like a beacon guiding her through the haze of anxiety. The confidence she felt in the meeting echoed in her mind, but now the fear of judgment loomed larger than before. Would he see her as a colleague with potential, or simply as an aspiring artist stepping too far beyond her expertise? As she entered his office, she noticed the remnants of the meeting scattered around. Mark raised his eyes, a blend of weariness and curiosity crossing his face. "Hey, Sarah, what's up?" "I have an idea," she began, her voice steadier than she expected. "I want to propose an art workshop for the team." She watched his expression pivot from casual interest to analytical contemplation. Mark leaned back, his eyes narrowing just slightly. "An art workshop? Interesting concept. What's the goal?" She hesitated, feeling the weight of her uncertainty creeping back in. "I think it could help us connect better as a team. Art can be a way to express our thoughts and emotions, something that's often overlooked in our day-to-day tasks." Mark nodded, his gaze unwavering. "Valid point. But how do you see this playing out? What's the structure?" The questions were daunting, yet they cemented her resolve. "I'd create sessions that guide everyone through different art techniques. Anyone could participate, regardless of skill level. It would focus on collaboration and communication through creativity. We could use the experience to explore our professional dynamics in a fresh way." Mark folded his hands and leaned in, listening intently. "It's a bold initiative, Sarah. But what if the team isn't on board? You mentioned vulnerability and emotion. How do you plan to address that fear of judgment?" The inquiry struck her like an arrow, revealing her own inner conflicts. She had managed to draft a plan filled with potential, but the doubts still clung to her like shadows. I want to create a safe space. If we're all going to share, we need to feel that it's okay to be ourselves without fear of ridicule. I'll encourage everyone to express their feelings freely." Mark looked thoughtful, weighing her words. "That's important, but can you handle the varying responses? Not everyone will be receptive. It could be tough if someone reacts negatively." His skepticism stung, but she couldn't afford to back down now. Something within pushed her onward. "I understand that, but it's just as important for me to express this part of myself too. I want to grow, and I believe this workshop could benefit everyone involved." In that moment, Sarah realized she was not just seeking validation, she was laying the foundation for her own evolution. Mark was right. It would be a test of resilience, a confrontation not only of her fears, but also of her ability to lead. Mark finally broke the silence, his expression shifting into a mix of encouragement and caution. "You've thought this through. I appreciate that. Why don't you put together a more detailed plan, present it at our next team meeting? I can help you with the logistics." Relief washed over her, but it was laced with anticipation. With Mark's support, she had an opening, an opportunity to bring her vision to life. Yet, as excitement bubbled beneath the surface, an unsettling realization took hold, not just her planning skills, but also her ability to support others through their vulnerabilities. As she left Mark's office, adrenaline coursed through her veins. This was more than an initiative. It was a reflection of her own journey, an exploration of the deeper layers of her identity. But self-awareness came with challenges, and the looming question of how her colleagues would perceive her led to a quiet gnawing in her gut. Would they embrace her initiative, or would they dismiss it as frivolous? Would they see the value in connecting through art, or simply view it as a distraction? The path ahead was unknown, layered with potential failures and triumphs alike. 2 steps into the hallway, Sarah paused, staring at the art covering the office walls. Was she prepared to boldly dig deeper, risking vulnerability in front of her peers? With her heart racing, she seized the paper again, determined to breathe life into her proposal. The voices of her self-doubt remained present, but so too did the rising fire of determination, the understanding that by stepping forward, she might inspire them to discover their readiness to do the same. As she walked toward her desk, the pulse of change ignited within her, and she sensed that something immense lay ahead. Yet each breath pulled her deeper into uncertainty. Would this leap transform her environment, or would she find herself more isolated than ever? The moment of reckoning was approaching, the day she would unveil her proposal. Would she find the courage to embrace the unfolding challenge, or would hesitation hold her back? The architecture of her destiny hung in the balance, waiting to shape her path, and the opportunity was now within reach. The days leading to the team meeting felt like a steep mountain Sarah had to climb, each step a mix of exhilaration and dread. She spent sleepless nights drafting the workshop plan, her mind a whirlwind of ideas and fears. Each word she wrote was an act of pushing against her self-doubt, coaxing clarity from chaos. At work, the mundane rhythm of emails and conference calls faded into background noise, overshadowed by her fixation on this upcoming presentation. The office around her buzzed with the usual chatter, but she felt like an outsider, each interaction reminding her of the risks she was about to take. Would her peers welcome her with open arms, or write her off as the quirky team member who didn't truly understand the corporate landscape? As the day approached, Sarah wrestled with her thoughts like a fighter in the ring. It was becoming clear that this workshop wasn't just a project, it was deeply personal, a measure of her own worth. Each time she rehearsed her lines in her head, a familiar voice sneered, questioning her qualifications. What do you know about art workshops? You've never even led one before. But under the shadow of that voice, another arose, the more assertive part of her that had identified the need for vulnerability and connection within the team. This inner voice urged her to push past the criticism, to view the upcoming meeting not just as a presentation, but as a collaboration opportunity, a chance to awaken creativity within herself and others. Finally, the day of the meeting arrived. The conference room was a sterile environment, the long table intimidatingly polished. This setting mirrored her anxiety, the room filled with unwritten rules that she felt were holding her back. She stood at the end of the table, palms sweating, heart racing. It was a striking contrast to her previous days of quiet planning and hopeful aspirations. As her colleagues filed in, she caught their curious looks. Some were skeptical, others engaging. Still, the undercurrent of their expectations loomed over her. She positioned the proposal before her, its contents a physical manifestation of her journey, yet uncertain how they would receive it. "Thanks for joining, everyone," she began, her voice steadier than she felt. "I want to share an idea that could help us strengthen our teamwork." As she laid out her vision for the art workshop, she noticed her confidence gradually building with every point she made. But she also saw the reactions. A few heads nodded, while others raised eyebrows, confused expressions flickering across faces. Each expression felt like a test. Sarah pushed forward, with her rationale, weaving in the importance of emotional expression, creative collaboration, and the potential benefits to their work environment. Midway through, she paused, glancing at the room's skeptics. "I know art might seem irrelevant here, but think about it as a tool for communication, a way to express what we often can't in emails or meetings. A silence filled the room, charged and electric. Could she sense opening minds, or was it play-acting politeness? Then came voices, questions about the execution, concerns about time. Each inquiry stung at first, but then she reframed them in her mind as opportunities. Responding thoughtfully, she turned what felt like barriers into an engaging conversation. Vulnerability is tough, she admitted, a bit breathless, but it's necessary. If we're going to grow as a team, we have to learn to lean on each other, risk sharing our authentic selves. As she powered through her presentation, something shifted. In the moment of sharing, Sarah felt an awakening, a realization that she too was not alone in facing uncertainties. This wasn't just about art, it was about resilience, the ability to stand in front of others and unveil her truth regardless of potential judgment. When she finished, the echoes of clapping were hesitant but sincere. Mark stood first, rewarding her with an approving smile that felt like a lifeline. "Thank you for sharing your passion. I think you're onto something, Sarah." Though she felt a sense of relief, a new question settled in her mind. Had she truly transformed the conversation, or simply sparked curiosity? With mingling thoughts and bolstered confidence, she headed to her desk, pondering her next move. She had taken a significant first step, but would her colleagues' initial acceptance translate to real participation and genuine exploration in the workshop? It felt as though she had merely opened a door. What lay beyond was uncharted territory. A flicker of uncertainty ignited anew. Suddenly, the workshop was not just about art. It had become a reflection of Sarah herself, a journey into the unknown depths of her capabilities, ready to confront personal demons while potentially showing her colleagues the beauty of authenticity. What awaited her on the other side? Would this blossoming opportunity lead to deeper connections, or would she find herself grappling for recognition amidst a backdrop of mixed responses? Days after the meeting, Sarah drifted through the office with a mix of adrenaline and apprehension swirling inside her. The applause still echoed in her mind, a distant melody that kept her company during her routine tasks. Each email she answered and every discussion she participated in felt like pieces of a puzzle trying to fit together, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something crucial was still missing. As the workshop date loomed nearer, her initial burst of confidence began to wane. Would her coworkers genuinely engage in the collaborative process she envisioned? Or would they revert to their old ways of communicating, mere transactional exchanges, devoid of vulnerability? The internal battle raged. Doubt clawed at her thoughts, whispering that this venture might just be another misguided attempt to fit in. In an unexpected moment of reflection, she decided to confront her fears head-on. Instead of languishing in the what-ifs, Sarah carved out time in her schedule to meet with Mark, her ally in the recent presentation. They found a quiet corner of the office, a small respite from the usual clamor. "Thanks for your support during the meeting," she began, hesitantly. "But I still wonder if they'll actually engage when we start the workshop. What if they just humor me?" The flicker of insecurity in her voice surprised her, revealing a vulnerability she hadn't intended to share. Mark studied her for a moment, his brow furrowed. "They aren't just humor people, Sarah. They follow your lead. If you show them that it's worthwhile to invest emotionally, they'll surprise you." His words sparked something within her. The truth dawned. This workshop wasn't simply a new undertaking for her colleagues. It represented the courage she was summoning from within. "Maybe I need to lead by example," she mused aloud, hesitating over the thought. But how? Mark shot her a convincing glance. "Start small. Share specific moments in your life where vulnerability led to growth. Let them see you as more than just a colleague. You're a person with stories, and stories connect us. They need to know that you're willing to lay yourself bare too." Inspired yet anxious about this new prospect, Sarah felt the weight of her own past experiences. Through quick reflections, she recalled moments of struggle and triumph. her first job where embarrassment met confidence, her journey through art classes where self-doubt turned into creative expression. They were fragments of a puzzle she had never fully appreciated until now. Could sharing my story about overcoming my fears really make a difference? She questioned, doubt creeping back in. Absolutely, he reassured her, nodding decisively. This is about connection. If they don't know how you've faced your own vulnerabilities, they won't feel safe opening up themselves. The conversation lingered with Sarah throughout the day, challenging the assumptions she had made about herself and her colleagues. She meticulously constructed not just a structure for the workshop, but also a framework for her own personal narrative. Each anecdote became a stepping stone, fostering a landscape where vulnerability could flourish. Would she have the courage to be open, to allow her experiences to illuminate the path for others? Taking deep breaths, Sarah began drafting her opening for the workshop, her fingers dancing across the keyboard as ideas flowed. It was no longer just about facilitating an art workshop. It had turned into a mission of mutual discovery. As she poured her heart into the presentation, an unsettling thought crept back. What if sharing her narrative made her more vulnerable than she wished to be? The stakes felt higher now. Each story, a glance into her soul laid bare, had the potential to either forge deep connections or leave her feeling exposed and alone. She pushed the worry aside, convincing herself that true growth was rarely comfortable. It was often in the tension between fear and hope where transformation occurred. With the workshop only days away, determination flooded her veins. Sarah had committed to this journey, embraced her purpose, and welcomed whatever came next. Would this unveiling bring the depth of connection she craved, or would it unearth insecurities she had worked so hard to bury? As she sat staring at the draft, a wave of anticipation washed over her. The moment of truth was drawing near. She could almost feel the electricity crackling in the air, a promise that the workshop would be filled with unexpected revelations. What stories would rise to the surface in the company of her colleagues? She would discover not only who they were, but who she had the potential to become in their eyes. With the workshop day dawning, Sarah awoke with a mixture of excitement and dread gnawing at her insides. The sunlight seeped through her curtains, but instead of feeling invigorated, a sense of urgency washed over her. She was standing at the precipice of something monumental, and beneath it lay a chasm of vulnerability that threatened to swallow her whole. As she prepared for work, anxieties flickered through her mind like a rapid-fire slideshow. Each slide was a vivid recollection, the time she had been laughed at during a presentation in college, the failure of a well-planned project that had her questioning her career path. These memories, no longer distant echoes, seemed to wrap around her like a cloak of inadequacy. "Why did I think sharing would help?" she muttered to herself, the weight of self-doubt pressing heavily against her chest. But as she stepped out the door, a flicker of resolve ignited her determination. She had woven a narrative both painful and instructive, ready to share not just to open doors for others, but to open one for herself. Arriving at the office, she found her coworkers mingling and whispering in clusters, their usual banter laced with a hint of apprehension over the impending workshop. The atmosphere was thick with expectation, but Sarah's heart began to race not just from nerves, but from the awareness of her own evolving role. She was no longer just a participant. She was a facilitator, a guide. Taking a deep breath, she gathered her materials, her mind racing with the structure she had so meticulously planned. As she smiled at familiar faces, she noticed Mark leaning against the wall, a supportive nod as he caught her eye. Their earlier conversation resonated in her mind. She knew she had to anchor herself in her truths to lift her colleagues along with her. When the workshop commenced, Sarah found herself standing at the front, her palms slightly damp as she welcomed everyone with a genuine warmth that surprised even herself. She opened up with a story about an embarrassing incident from her early days at the company, a moment filled with authentic vulnerability. As she articulated her discomfort, she felt the tension in the room begin to shift. Genuine connections started to spark. But then something unexpected happened. A colleague named Jake, who often remained quiet during team meetings, broke his silence. "I know what you mean. There was a time I thought I had everything figured out, and then..." His voice faltered, and the room fell silent, all eyes on him. I bombed a major presentation, and it felt like the end of the world. Sarah watched in awe as others started to chime in, sharing stories of personal embarrassment and failure. Each piece of honesty peeled away the layers of pretense, weaving a tapestry of shared experience. Moments of laughter punctured the air, but also deep breaths of empathy coalesced into a shared understanding. As the workshop progressed, Sarah experienced a revelation within herself. She wasn't alone in her fears. She found strength in their vulnerability, a collective resilience emerging that she never anticipated. In that space of openness, she felt herself transforming, her previous anxiety now mingled with a sense of belonging. The pivotal moment came when she recounted her art classes, where she was terrified of showing her work, yet that fear led her to discoveries she hadn't been ready for. Vulnerability isn't just vulnerability, it's courage and growth, she explained passionately. The people in the room were no longer mere colleagues, they were fellow travelers on a journey through their own insecurities. Nevertheless, as the workshop wrapped up, Sarah still felt a flicker of uncertainty. Had she bared enough of her soul to establish that deeper connection? Yet, as she looked around at the glimmering eyes of her coworkers, she began to realize that the exchange they had shared was just the beginning. What would unfold in the next days following this unprecedented gathering? Sarah stood at the threshold of her evolving path, but what awaited her beyond this newfound vulnerability? She felt an urgency to explore. What barriers had she unknowingly erected within herself, just waiting to be dismantled by the very connections she had facilitated? It was a chance to not only lead, but to redefine herself, and she yearned to see where that journey would take her next. In the days that followed the workshop, Sarah found herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. Each day at the office became a test of her newfound resolve, a chance to explore the depths of her capabilities and confront the vulnerability she had once shunned. Her interactions felt different now. The laughter shared in the workshop rippled through the walls of her office, filling the air with an unspoken camaraderie that sparked a sense of possibility. As she settled into her routine, she noticed a subtle shift in her dynamics with her colleagues. They approached her with a newfound openness, inviting her into conversations that stretched beyond work. Mark often stopped by her desk to discuss ideas and share his own experiences, while Jake, the once quiet colleague, began to involve himself in team meetings with greater confidence. It was thrilling to witness their transformations, yet it stirred something deep within her, a deep-seated desire to unearth her own potential. On a Tuesday morning, Sarah received an email about an upcoming company meeting that would require presentations from each department. Her stomach knotted as memories of past presentation mishaps flickered through her mind. But instead of retreating, she felt determination surge within her. Why not showcase the insights gained from the workshop, she pondered. It wouldn't just be another presentation. It would be a continuation of their shared journey of vulnerability. With a tight deadline edging her forward, Sarah poured herself into her preparation, drafting slides that not only outlined analytics and metrics, but incorporated anecdotes from their workshop. Each story she wove became a bridge linking the analytical to the emotional, presenting not just data, but the collective struggle of individuals honing their skills. She could almost envision the moment her colleagues would be inspired. It lit a fire in her work. As the meeting approached, however, the familiar specter of doubt crept in. The memory of being laughed at for a poorly executed presentation in college haunted her thoughts. Would they see her attempts to blend numbers with narrative as naive? Just as her confidence began to falter, she recalled her previous revelation. Vulnerability breeds connection. This time, she wouldn't cower. She would be transparent about her journey. When the day came, Sarah stood at the front of the conference room, palms damp with perspiration, but her heart was resolute. With each slide, she uncovered layers of shared experiences, culminating in a call to action that urged everyone to cultivate an environment where sharing felt safe. "Let's not shy away from what we fear," she implored, courage filling her voice. As she spoke, she observed nods of understanding and support flourishing in the crowd. Sarah's authenticity acted as a catalyst, igniting a flame of collective introspection. But just as she thought she had connected with her audience, a disconcerting interruption occurred. Rachel, her supervisor, rose quietly from her chair, her face clouded with an unsettling grimace. "I can't believe you would share that," Rachel stated, her voice slicing through the atmosphere like a glass shard. The room froze. Every eye shifted towards Sarah as she grappled with the weight of Rachel's words. An unsettling blend of embarrassment and anger flared within her. How could she have misread the room? Had her vulnerability overstepped boundaries? But beneath the sting of Rachel's criticism, a defiance flickered to life. Wasn't this the very purpose of her message? As Rachel continued, detailing her discomfort, Sarah felt the undercurrents of support rising from her colleagues, an unspoken assurance that she did not stand alone. Each comment made in defense of Sarah served to fortify her resolve. She realized she was not merely defending her actions, but representing a newfound courage within the entire team. It was a moment of reckoning. She could either retreat back into herself or confront Rachel directly. The stakes had risen, and as Sarah opened her mouth to respond, the weight of possibility bore down upon her. Could she navigate the confrontation without losing sight of her own truths? As she prepared to address Rachel, her heart raced. The moment hung delicately, a crucial turning point in Sarah's journey that could either shatter her newly forged confidence or strengthen it in ways unforeseen. What lay on the other side of this challenge, and what hidden strengths would Sarah uncover within herself? With a steely resolve, Sarah took a deep breath, centering herself, feeling the warmth of her colleagues' support surrounding her. She focused on Rachel, whose expression lay somewhere between confusion and disdain. "I appreciate your perspective, Rachel, but the essence of what I shared during this presentation is vital to our growth as a team," she addressed, her voice calm but firm. "I shared my vulnerabilities because I believe acknowledging them can foster a stronger, more authentic environment. We spend hours at our desks, working side by side, but how often do we truly know each other beyond our roles? If we can't connect on a human level, how can we thrive together as a team?" The silence in the room thickened. She felt every gaze land on her with interest and anticipation. Rachel paused, her shoulders relaxing slightly in response to the room's energy. Sarah seized the moment, the weight of her previous insecurities starting to lift. "I want to encourage all of you to embrace your own stories, to recognize that we can learn and grow by sharing our experiences, even the uncomfortable ones." That simple act of standing her ground marked a turning point. The conversation that had initially felt threatening transformed into a forum for empowerment. Colleagues began chiming in, each contribution weaving a richer tapestry of collective experience. The vulnerability that had once been a fear morphed into a shared strength, and with each story, Sarah felt herself growing, cementing her place not just as a colleague, but as a leader. Later that day, the tension dissipated, replaced by an electric buzz of excitement that lingered in the hallways. Encouraged by the enthusiastic responses from her coworkers, Sarah felt a pulse of pride seep into her being. She had taken a risk, boldly crossing the threshold of vulnerability, and had emerged not just intact, but transformed. It wasn't just the presentation that mattered, but the realization of her own voice and the strength in her vulnerability. Weeks went by, and Sarah found herself naturally stepping into a more assertive role. The art workshop she had initially envisioned evolved into a collaborative project that fostered creativity, trust, and camaraderie among her colleagues. It became a monthly event, allowing team members to express their own struggles, revealing a depth of connection that transcended traditional office relationships. As each new workshop unfolded, Sarah witnessed a profound shift, not only in herself, but in those around her. Colleagues openly explored their stories, leading their own discussions and inspiring one another. The once strained dynamics transformed into a cohesive unit that found strength in diversity and authenticity. Sarah had initiated a cultural metamorphosis, turning a mundane workspace into an atmosphere teeming with encouragement and emotional safety. On a particularly radiant Friday afternoon, Sarah stood before her colleagues, her heart swelling with accomplishment. They were gathered not just for another art workshop, but to celebrate the tangible achievements that arose from their shared narratives. The sense of community enveloped her, and she reflected on how far she had come, from the quiet assistant seeking validation to a valued, respected team leader. Mark approached her after the meeting, a proud smile lighting his face. "You've really done something remarkable here, Sarah. Your courage to embrace your truth and lead by example has shifted the entire team's dynamic." His words resonated with the very core of her being, reinforcing her transformation. She felt buoyed by recognition, not just from him, but from her colleagues, who viewed her as a catalyst for their development. It wasn't about being the best artist or the most accomplished employee. It was about collective growth, mutual inspiration, and the courage to bare one's soul. As she left the office that day, a sense of fulfillment washed over her. She no longer felt the weight of doubt or inadequacy. Instead, there was a solid confidence anchoring her. Sarah had conquered not only the critics around her, but also the harshest critic within herself. She had transformed her vulnerabilities into strengths, proving her worth. In allowing herself to be authentic, she had cultivated a surrounding that thrived on real connections and mutual support. With each brushstroke of her life, intertwined with those of her colleagues, Sarah embraced her journey, knowing that her artistic expression had melded harmoniously with her leadership role. As the sun's setting cast a golden glow over her path, she understood that this was just the beginning. Embracing herself fully had created an avenue for others to do the same, igniting a revolution of authenticity and empowerment that would ripple far beyond the office walls and into every aspect of their lives. If you feel inspired by this powerful transformation, you need to subscribe now to the channel for more exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support and let your voice be heard. Don't wait even one more second. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and ensure these incredible stories reach those who need them most. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this impactful ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who could benefit from Sarah's journey. Together, let's continue sparking change and growth in all our lives.